I've been on websites where I've seen so many recommended for you products, and it's just a load of rubbish. I think if they clicked yes, we closed the pop-up, and that was it. And if they clicked no, we asked them for more information. So we'd ask them for the question that they want the answer to.
Welcome to another episode of Click to Buy. I'm here today with my guest, Will. Will, we're so happy to have you. Could you give a little intro of yourself and what it is that you do?
Hi, thanks for having me. So I am Will Laurenson. I'm the founder of Customers Who Click. We're a CRO agency based in London. We work with e-commerce brands. We're actually performance-based CRO company as well. So we only we get paid on the results that we generate from our clients, which works really well for both of us. Kind of got into CRO very, very quickly. Got into CRO because when I was in-house, a couple of startups I worked at, we got handed quite decent budgets and just told, go acquire customers, go grow the business. And the expectation was that they could go and continue to build their product and their website separately, and that marketing would be over the other side, driving traffic, turning that traffic into customers, no matter what that product really looked like. And of course, it doesn't really work like that.
No.
So I started to do more research, gather more feedback from customers, get on calls with them, run some A/B tests on landing pages to try and really work out what appealed to them. And then I started to work more and more closely with those product and development teams themselves to actually influence what we were building.
It's really an interesting story. How you jumped in, from learning and being interested in what other teams were doing and trying to connect the dots.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I never really liked the advertising side. I never found it that interesting. I was always focused on, once we've got someone's attention with the advert, what do we do there? How do we get how do we get them converted? How do we get them activated as well? How do we make sure they keep coming back? Because it's actually relatively easy to get a conversion if that's all you want. I can throw massive discounts around, other great incentives and all that, and we'll get loads of people through the door, but they're not going to stick around. They're not going to be valuable. So it's kind of working out what do people care about enough, so we can focus on that, get them to convert, and actually have them stick around. I left my last job November 19, so just before COVID, and I thought it'd be a great idea. I knew that I wanted to consult or have an agency or something. I wanted to work with multiple businesses on CRO. I took that opportunity and jumped into it.
Thank you for sharing your story. I think it's also really interesting to hear how someone kind of gets into the career of kind of conversion optimization. What sort of resources or how did you kind of train yourself to prepare for this role? Was it really like on the job personal development, or are there other people or websites or resources you can follow for maybe other people who might be interested or inspired after hearing your story?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of on-the-job practice, right? Just kind of figuring things out and seeing where it went. But obviously, lots and lots of research, right? Which is great because that's what CRO involves. So it's good that it all kind of started with research. Off the top of my head, I'll see how many I can name.
That's all right.
CXO was obviously really, really important. They are the conversion rate optimization academy. That's where people go to get certified. So read a lot of their stuff, a lot of their blogs. Unbounce was another one, particularly for landing pages. They used to do live teardowns. I don't know if they still do actually, but they used to do teardowns. They had a really good blog. So there were a few other SaaS businesses that had really good blogs. That just always talked about customer experience. How do you make things better for your customers? How do you acquire them better? And for years, I was just absorbing everything I could. I had a separate newsletter folder just for these types of newsletters, and I would just go through it every day on my way to work, read a few of the articles on my way in, make notes on anything that was particularly interesting and that I thought we could try. Nowadays, it's probably still some of the same sources, but there's also a lot of people that I'm connected with in the industry. So I jump on calls with them a lot. We exchange ideas. or we just discuss them on LinkedIn.
Nice. Well, thanks for kind of sharing your tips and tricks. I always love like sharing other resources because I think like as I've spoken with other guests on the podcast as well, it's so interesting hearing how people kind of learn their own kind of style and what they focus on in terms of conversion optimization, which is why I'd love to start off with a segment of this podcast we call Conversion This or That, where I ask for your advice or tips on kind of imagining two different scenarios. If you could only pick one, which would you pick? Of course, this
Okay.
depends on the situation or the product. So we have to be a bit general here, which I know you conversion optimization experts don't like to be too general, but bear with me. So let's imagine that you can only pick one for a website, for let's say like a D2C website. Would you only pick personalized product recommendations or bestsellers on the homepage?
Um, for the vast majority, and it's not going to be a straight answer because it doesn't work like
That's all
that.
right. It's okay.
For the vast majority of brands, it's going to be bestsellers, and you can position bestsellers in various different ways. One that we did with a client was they had a bestsellers section at the top of the PLP, and we
Mhm.
turned it into the founder's favourites. So we actually put a picture of the founder there, a little bit of text on why she liked um, wearing each different category of jewelry, and then we had what were the four bestsellers. So that worked really well. So it was still bestsellers, but we didn't just stick a little tag on them and say bestsellers. We kind of
Yeah,
presented them as
bestsellers
something.
with a twist.
Yeah, so that worked really well. I think for the majority of brands, you're not going to have the data to do personalized recommendations.
True. Yeah, I think it really depends, obviously. But for most people so far, they've also said bestsellers. So good to see that we have a little bit of consistency
Well,
here.
I think, and it's probably the exact example, right? People don't have enough
Yeah,
data. I've been on
true.
websites where I've seen so many recommended for you products, and it's just a load of rubbish. And I'm like, why?
Hmm.
How are any of these being recommended to me? Whereas bestsellers, it doesn't make me think about, would I actually like it in that way? Why is it recommended to me? Because you either if you see something and you're like, well, that's so different to what I normally buy.
True.
You're leaning more towards a no. Whereas if you see something that loads of other people are buying and it's really important, really popular, you're leaning towards the yes.
True. I think like that's true. And you can use that personalization like later on when somebody buys something like other customers also bought XYZ or things like that, which maybe is a bit
Yeah.
more related to what someone's actually doing. So I think that's a great answer for our first this or that. So another one for you. So this has kind of been a hot button topic on this podcast, which is pop-ups. If you could only
Okay.
pick one, would you pick exit intent pop-ups or scroll-based or action-based pop-ups?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah. We've had some a variety of opinions, so I'm curious.
I think exit intent
Hmm.
because partly because the number of websites I look at where so few people scroll the product page,
Hmm.
right? Which is the one that really matters. So if people are just looking at the fold and they're not scrolling and they want to make a decision within 10 seconds whether they want to scroll or leave or whatever, or go search for another product, I'd probably use exit intent,
Hmm.
or possibly on mobile. Obviously, you don't really have exit intent,
True.
but if someone scrolls straight back to the top of the page quickly, um, you could then display. It also depends what you want to do with the pop up, though.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
another thing. Um,
Uh,
if because if someone scrolls back to the top of the page, you still don't know
mhm.
whether they're about to exit or whether they're about to add to cart.
Yeah, because maybe they saw what they needed at that point or whatnot. I would tend to agree with you personally. I was just looking at HelloFresh yesterday and I was just about to exit, and then this beautiful pop-up came up that was like, oh, like pick a box or some sort of like mystery thing. And it was just engaging enough that it kept me on for like, a few more seconds. So I think, like you said, if it's the well-timed thing and if you can try to guess what someone's doing, I think that can potentially lead to a better result. But obviously it does depend on what
So,
the person is actually doing.
yeah, I think you can do the same sort of thing with both as well. So one
Hmm.
thing that I quite like is um, not trying to capture an email address with these,
Yeah.
actually doing
Yeah.
a, have you found what you're looking for?
Mm.
Or you probably phrase it something like, are you struggling to find something for you? Whatever, you can brand it up depending, change the copy depending what the
Hmm.
product is and the offering is. Um, but people obviously came to the website for a reason. That
Hmm.
reason might have been to buy it, it might have been to gather information. So you can use a pop up to try and get a feel for what people actually were here for, what
Hmm.
was missing. Um, if they found what they're looking for, they might click the yes button. In which
Yeah.
case you can either just close it and let them carry on, or you could maybe offer something there. But for the people who say no, you gather feedback. Right? So
Hmm.
I've actually run this test on a CBD website
Oh,
where
interesting.
we did have it was an action based trigger. So it was like a link. You had to click a link. It was just a little text link. I can't remember what it said for this one. It was a little bit of curiosity involved
Hmm.
in it. I think it might have been, are you new to CBD? I think that might have been it. Just a little text link. So you clicked that, it opened up a pop up where we talked a little bit about the brand, why their products were quality, and some of the key things about CBD. And then at the bottom, we also said, did you get all the information you're looking for? Yes or no. I think if they clicked yes, we closed the pop up. That was it. And if they clicked no, we asked them for more information. So we'd ask them for the question that they want the answer to, and I think the email address as well,
That's pretty
because
clever.
we want to
Hopefully
get
you're
back to
then
them.
eliminating the doubts that that person has or the last hang-ups that are keeping them from converting or actually exploring your product in greater detail.
Yeah, and then we could improve that pop up with the information we were being told that people were looking for as well. But also, this is one of those things that can have an
Hmm.
impact on conversion rate just by being there. So
Hmm.
someone can click it, read it, get some of the information. Maybe they don't get an answer to a certain question, but because
Hmm.
they feel like the company's actually listening, it's there for them. If it's not that important a question, they might leave it and just be happy to buy.
Gotcha. So sometimes the presence alone of having more information is already a bit more reassuring or
If you
can provide
if you're
that.
presenting, I think if you're presenting yourself
Hmm.
as the expert, like a
Hmm.
genuine expert and a quality product, then certain questions can be left aside. Obviously, if someone had, can I take CBD while I'm on medicine?
Yeah.
They will want to know the answer to that question. But it's the same as in any food-based products. If someone's got an allergy, they need to know yes or no whether that allergen is in there. And if they can't get an answer to that, they have to assume the answer is yes, and so they can't buy it.
Gotcha. Well, kind of on this topic of like, what should you post that people feel like they have the right information, or maybe so that they form a positive impression of you? Our last this or that, if you had to pick one, would you prefer to use or highlight more user-generated content or social media? Oh, sorry. Would you prefer to include more user-generated content on a product page or like an embedded social media feed? So I've seen like some examples of this where some brands like just post things kind of that look like they could have users in them or like user submitted photos or just like link externally to like a external site.
No, I'd pull it all in, use it on the website,
Hmm.
get it on the image gallery. You get it in your product reviews. Obviously, you can use little snippets dotted around. If you've got a, I'm trying to think of an example really quickly. If you've got and how does this product help with X? If you've
Hmm.
got a video from a customer explaining that, that comes across so much better than the little image you were probably using and a few bullet points saying our pillar
Mm-hmm.
or our product is designed to do this. It's designed with this in mind as well. But if you've got a customer who's just literally on a video saying, I bought this product, it's helped with XYZ, all the key
Mm-hmm.
points, it's going to sell so much better. So, an interesting test to run would be to try and replace as much content as possible on a page with user-generated content, if you can get it.
Absolutely. I think I'm right there with you. I think like we discussed in a previous episode, how like Fenty, for example, uses like pictures that are submitted from users in like multiple different size groups. So I think that's like really effective for if you were considering buying like this underwear, no matter what your size is, you can see like what a real person looks like wearing that. And I
Yeah.
think that increases like the trust factor or picturing yourself like other people bought this. That's what it looks like. Kind of like that internal mindset, I guess, of the consumer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, certain products, people don't really
Hmm.
care about the images.
True.
We had a look at, I worked with a food brand earlier this year. They did like basically like ready meals, but
Hmm.
cooked by chefs. So it was kind of like the idea was it was like homemade ready meals.
Oh.
That kind of the best way I could describe it is it was like having your own leftovers, right? Which sounds really terrible. So it's not a great way of putting it. But what I mean
Hmm.
is like it genuinely felt like real home cooked food that had been portioned up and put in a box and sent to you, rather than something that was like made in an industrial, commercial kitchen.
Yeah.
Um, but with them, you can't get user photos for that sort of stuff. Too much of the time, the food looks terrible
Mm.
because people don't know how to plate up properly. You need good
Yeah.
light. You really need good lighting. There's so much you have to take into account, and so yeah, it was a real struggle getting any good user photos for that. But in stuff like fashion, if people just want to see a fit, right, you know,
Hmm.
maybe you can get away with just anyone not taking it on their iPhone in their room, right in front of a mirror. You probably get some good enough photos there.
True. I
But
think
yeah,
that's a good point. It does depend on the product and how much the audience is able to produce photos that still spotlight your product in an attractive angle. Because obviously
yeah.
the quality of your images on your site also leads to that kind of brand impression and feel and whatnot.
Well, yeah. Another example, another way of
Hmm.
you've got to think about it is I worked with a lighting brand,
Hmm.
and one of their most popular products was primarily used as an outside light,
Mm.
and so it was just like a bar light. So most people used it vertically on a wall, and a lot of the feedback we got from people was their lights to be special, right?
Mm.
They wanted their house to stand out in the street because they had these unique lights that no one else had. They didn't want the standard stuff from Home Depot or anything like that. But some of the pictures that were sent in, some of them were just not taken very well. But at other times, you just couldn't really get a feel for how good the light was.
Mm.
And then that kind of creates that feeling of, well, all right, the light fitting itself looks okay, but does it light anything up?
Yeah.
Right.
Does
So
it
there's
work as we hope?
some outside photos taken, towards the evening didn't really show the house lit up too well. I was like, well, do you want to show that? Because if people look at that and go, well, it's a nice light, but it doesn't produce any light, then that's going to be a concern for people. So I think there's quite a lot you have to take into account when picking these pictures, and any video content you use. It's not just a case of sticking everything up there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for playing this or that. I have a couple other questions here for you that I'd love to pick your brain about. So I know that you're kind of a big fan of different frameworks. In particular, I believe the UAM method. Could you maybe explain for those of us who maybe don't know what that means a little bit more in greater detail? What is the UAM method and how can it help you increase conversion?
Yeah, so our UAM method is it basically stands for usability, anxiety, and motivation. So these are the three kind of areas we're targeting on a website, right?
Hmm.
We've got to make it easy for people to find a product. We've got to answer all their questions, and we've got to excite them about it. That's essentially it. Each one kind of breaks into two. So on the usability side, you've got the technical side, right? Does the website work? Sounds really simple, but the number of times we test a website on an Android device, for example, a different screen size, and there is maybe the loyalty pop-up is on the left, the customer service pop-up's on the right, and your call to action's in the middle, covered by both of them, so no one can click your call to action. And if it's a sticky call to action, right, you can't just scroll down the page a little bit and click it at the top. It's always covered. So there's a few things around. Literally, does the website work properly? Is there anything getting in the way technically? That also covers things like site speed. Can we just speed up the website at all? The second part of usability is the bit I just mentioned, which is can we help people find and buy the right products? Right. So do you have a good search function? Is your navigation really easy to use? Can people filter properly on your PLPs? When they get to a product page, is it, can they easily see the images and zoom in on them? Can they select their options? Can they add to cart? All the way through. Is there any friction in this process, or is it pretty easy for them? The anxiety piece is this the right product for them? And is it the right business to buy that product from?
Mm-hmm.
So product side is obviously answering all the questions and concerns about a product. So I've used food as an example. So it could be, I want to know what ingredients are in there. I need to know what allergens are in there. I want to know what size it is. Is it a one-person portion, two people? How do I, going back to my client, how do I reheat it? Can I use a microwave? Is it an oven? Can it be frozen? Does it have to be chilled? All these sorts of things I need to know the answers to. But then there's also, once those questions have been answered, and I think, cool, yeah, I like this product, I want to buy it. It becomes the business, right? Especially if it's food, right? I've never heard of this business. Do I trust this business? Am I happy to buy from it? So that's where things like reviews come into play. So have you got a very prominent reviews for the business itself, not just the product? But it also covers things like customer service. Can I see an easy way to contact the business? Is there a phone number, live chat? Is there an easy returns policy? But there's also some off-site stuff. So something that's popped up a lot in customer feedback is social media accounts. So is your business social media account active? Do you have a story? Have you posted recently? Do people comment and engage with your posts? Are you verified? All these sort of things people look at to see whether they think there's a legit business here. And it doesn't have to be big. You've basically just got to be active, active, engaged. It's another thing people just check off their list. And then we've got the motivation piece. So this is, am I excited about this product? If it's food, do I think it's going to taste nice? That's the most important thing. And two things are going to tell me that. Firstly, the pictures. Right, I want to look at it and go, yeah, it looks like something I would like. Maybe I can see certain ingredients, whatever. That looks good. And also the ingredients list. Again, probably going to look at that, see a few things, and the product description as well. That can play a big factor in things. If it's written really well and makes the dish sound really appealing, I'm more likely to buy it. I remember looking at two examples on this my client's website. One was written really well, and it talked about the fact that she had a little pun on there as well. I can't remember, but I think this was from Thailand, and it was written really well. It had a little story to it. I think she grew up with this dish, learned how to make it, and was really excited to share it with people. And so you've got that story in there, plus you've got a description of the product, right? A kind of overview of the recipe. And then there was another one, which was like a tomato soup or something, and it pretty much just said, I didn't even say tomato soup. because I remember saying to my client, you could take this description and apply it to pretty much anything,
Mm,
not even just the recipes on the website. This description could have been put onto so many different D2C websites on a product page, and it would still have applied there. So that, that's doing nothing for you.
mhm,
It's not only is it not appealing, it doesn't make you want to buy the product, but it also kind of, it could, in this case, I think it was a tomato soup, it might make you think, oh, it's just a tomato soup then. There's nothing special. So why would I buy this? Right? It's
mm,
not just that they haven't motivated you and lifted
mhm.
you up, it's that you've kind of actually had a negative impact from that description.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
kind of that lack of specificity. It's too general, can also kind of hurt that motivating factor that you're talking about.
yeah. And the other motivating factor, which is the one that gets abused a little bit, unless you do it
Hmm.
right, is scarcity, urgency, these sort of tactics. If it's genuine, do it. Great. If it's not, please don't. Um, I have seen websites that have random counters, or it'll take a certain number. I think it looks at, you can tell in the code, like it's
Hmm.
looking at how many have been purchased, and then it adds on a certain random number as well to make
Mm.
sure. Which means you might as well just put a random number in. There's literally no point actually
Yeah.
tying the data in. But these things do work well. If your stock is genuinely limited, put that
Hmm.
on there. But specificity works well. So if you've got two left, say two left. Don't just say low stock. Weirdly,
True.
I had an in stock message work really well for one client, but that's because of the type of business. Shipping time has worked really well. So buy it by
Hmm.
5 o'clock, get it tonight or tomorrow. But then you've still always got to think about how does this actually affect your audience when you're doing these sorts
Mm.
of things. So a client a little while ago, they had a timer in their checkout for, we're going to hold your basket for 15 minutes while you complete your checkout. It was a little bit more, I'd say, blunt in its wording, and people just didn't appreciate it. We tested removing it, and it earned them about $90,000 a month at that time,
Wow.
because people felt like they were being rushed, and it was a product that they'd taken months to make a decision on, and then at the last minute, it felt like the company was trying to push them through the checkout. So you've always got to test these things, but this is kind of it's the motivating stuff. It's more. I'd say it's more the order it now to get it tomorrow,
Hmm.
rather than order it now where you might miss out, which I think is losing effectiveness because so many people abuse that sort of messaging.
Yeah, I think I hear like FOMO all the time. And indeed, I think the way to break through now is to experiment with those other motivating factors as well, because everything's scarce. Like you can't book a hotel room now on like any site without a message that's like only one or two rooms left. And that clearly can't be the case in every single hotel in a
Well,
major metropolitan city.
I think there was quite a big legal case here a few years ago, which the brands
Hmm.
lost, because it turned out that when they were saying, five other people are looking at this room,
Hmm.
it was actually across any date range,
Mm.
not your dates. So as
So it's
long as
like
if someone could
technically
be looking at
true.
it, yeah, someone's still looking at this room, but it's clearly misleading.
Hmm.
Um, and just the final point on the UAM thing is,
Hmm.
it all kind of stacks together, right? Usability, you can get away with a basic website, really. As long as people can find a product, add it to cart and buy it, you should be okay there. But you have to answer all their questions and concerns in order
Hmm.
to move them forwards. But if you only do that, then it's like you've ticked all the boxes and they go, cool, it does the job. Do I really need it? Do I really want it? So
Hmm.
you've got to get that motivating factor in place so that when people have ticked all the boxes, they're also going, yes, I have to have this right now. I want to buy this product. Similarly, if you only focus on the motivating factors, they can
Hmm.
think it's the most incredible product in the world, but if they've got questions that are unanswered, they can't buy it.
Indeed. Well, let's think. I know you already mentioned a lot of great examples, but maybe you can mention how does user research help you to explore these different areas, maybe in your own experience or just general advice.
Yeah, so we're always doing customer research for our
Hmm.
clients. So it takes a few different forms. So sometimes we'll use on-site pop-ups.
Hmm.
Things like what's the number one reason you didn't purchase today, or what's one piece of information that's missing from this page. We might do email surveys, which for the people who haven't purchased yet would be similar questions. Why haven't you purchased? But for the
Hmm.
people who have, what did you purchase? Why? What were you trying to achieve? Has the product helped you achieve this? What do you like? What do you dislike? All that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Um, we'll also do that on competitors as well. So we will say, have you bought similar products from other brands? If yes, again, what do you like? What do you dislike about them? And we also do customer interviews. So this is where we get to dig a little deeper into all these points and find out, what really motivates people.
Mm.
Um, what's the information we can get out of them that would be really, really difficult to in a normal survey. And it's one of the reasons I don't like doing quantitative surveys too much, particularly
Hmm.
if we don't know brand. If I said, what's the number one reason you didn't purchase today, and wanted to do a quantitative survey, I've got to give you maybe 5 options, but it means I've got to make up 5 options, and I might not actually know the one that is the problem.
True.
So by giving people the ability to just answer it, we pick up on a lot of stuff that um, you just wouldn't get through a quantitative survey.
Maybe
And the
that's a
same,
nice this or that for another guest on the show, customer interviews or customer surveys.
yeah. So yeah, the interviews work really well, and just
Yeah.
really because you also get to ask why.
Hmm.
There's something in engineering, the 5 whys, which I got taught about by some friends, and we kind of apply it here. It doesn't have to be 5. It's just that the point is, if you ask someone a question, they give you the answer. You should like what's the reason for that? Why? So why don't you like this product? Oh, it didn't do X. Okay, why is that important? Okay, why?
Hmm.
And so if you kind of keep asking why. Obviously, you don't just ask why. You ask a question that is designed to dig
Hmm.
in, but it just really helps you get to what people really care about. Um, which with a lot of products is difficult to. You still, even though people have bought the products, you still have to get them to
Hmm.
think about why they really wanted it and why they were buying it.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
Well, thanks for kind of exploring that a little bit deeper. I think, again, that was the usability, anxieties, and motivating factors method, correct?
yeah,
All right. So we'll definitely link to maybe some resources on that in the show notes in case maybe you have some you can send me as well from Will, since I know this is something you
yeah.
talk about a lot on your own newsletter and show. Uh, Maybe to move on a little bit, do you have any brands that you follow that are really inspiring in terms of their conversion tactics or factors? This could be in your work or just brands you follow or purchase from yourself.
So there's 2 that I want to mention.
Uh-huh.
One is a brand called AO.com.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if they're over in the States, but they're big here. Yeah, they're
Hmm.
a very, very big, like electrical uh, products um, um, retailer. They do a lot of experimentation, right? So you can tell. Well, I can tell. Most people
Hmm.
probably wouldn't be able to, but I there's certain things I pick up on, and I'm thinking that was different last time I was here.
Hmm.
So one that I know they were testing quite a bit on was their price. Like I think it's price match guarantee. And one time I looked at it and they had this comparison table that loaded. Oh, what was it? Yeah, so it triggered if you copied the name of the product. Right, so if you right
Hmm.
clicked, or maybe if you just highlighted, I can't remember what exactly triggered it, but basically if you
Hmm.
selected the product name a prompt came up saying, I don't know exactly, I've probably got it on LinkedIn somewhere, but something like, are you price shopping or something, or before you go, we can show you the comparison, whatever it was. But it basically opened up a table with about 5 different retailers in the UK, all ones that you would know, and it had a few bits of information. So it had their price, and I think it had a updated as of this date. So it wasn't necessarily today, but it'd be quite recently. And then it would have things like, do they offer free returns? Do they offer free shipping? Installation on certain products? So they had this big table. The next time I went there to look at it, it was very different. I'm pretty sure they just had a little price comparison. So it went from being this almost full page experience with lots of information to just this little, you can buy it here at this price, here at this price, here at this price with the cheapest sort of thing.
Super
So
interesting how you can like see that, how it changed maybe when they realized the thing that people care about the most is just this price comparison element, or maybe that's what they're testing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure it would have been 2 tests because I came back quite a bit later.
Okay.
So it's possible it's possible the first one I saw, the big table, was their first experiment there.
True.
People reacted well to it, so then they went, right, well, let's test. They might have been running multiple variants at that point, just focus on picking out certain pieces of information.
Nice.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, they do loads of experimentation, so it's always kind of fun clicking around their website, seeing how they do things. They do a lot of Amazon-style stuff as well. So, like some of their products will have very, very detailed, very nice product pages, and there are other ones which are a little bit more standard. Kind of just, here are your images, here's your information, get on with it. But they have that kind of, I can't remember what it's called. Is it AAA content? Is that it on Amazon? Where you get images and text and almost like infographics and things. It's like a landing page, right?
Exactly.
The other brand I want to mention is True Classics. I'm actually wearing that. This is one of their t-shirts. Their advertising is really good. Really focuses on a key point about why you would buy their t-shirt over any others. And then their website is just full of supporting content. There's so many videos you can watch. There's so much information, which, at the end of the day, it's like a £15 to £20 t-shirt, depending on which you buy. And it's plain, right? It's not branded at all. The True Classics, it's, behind the neck on the inside. That's it. There's no other branding on it. But they've managed to sell, I think they're doing about 300 million a year selling these plain products, because they sell the benefits of the products, not like any other website, which is just, here's a t-shirt, here are your color options, here's your size option. So it's definitely a website I'd recommend looking at, having a look over, understanding like what content they've put on those pages and why, and seeing what inspiration you can get from that.
Thanks for those 2 really good examples. I think those are both great examples. Also nice that they're in 2 different product categories. You can kind of see, like, although they're different products, like you can see kind of what works across the board, maybe what works within different like niches, like selling apparel versus selling like an appliance. You might have different concerns about like technical specs versus like, how is this shirt, why this shirt versus a different one, or how will this fit on my body, or all these kind of things that you've mentioned. Nice. Well, when it comes to improving conversion, I know like at your agency you work with like a lot of different clients. Do you have any tools that you can recommend that you frequently use for running your tests, or any other conversion tactics that you work on?
So not necessarily the individual tools. It's more kind of categories of tools. So obviously Google Analytics. Pretty essential. We use Typeform a lot for customer surveys. Most of the time we would use Zoom or Google Meet for our interviews. So it's nice and simple. There's always a behavioral tool. So Hotjar, something like Hotjar, Lucky Orange, Microsoft Clarity. Some A/B testing tools now include this as well, which is good, but they do tend to be focused on the test itself, I think. So they're both worth having. But we use FigPy as a testing tool a bit. But we also kind of use whatever clients are using. So the team has the experience with multiple platforms. If someone is on a particular A/B testing platform, we're not going to come in and say, no, let's rip that out. Get rid of everything you've worked on with that, and we'll start with something new because that's what we like to use. At the end of the day, most of the platforms are pretty similar in how they work, and they should all be doing pretty much the same thing on the testing side anyway. So yeah, don't really have preferences around that. We're quite happy to be flexible. Most clients we work with have something in place already there. It's the same with most of the tools, to be honest. Most clients will have Hotjar, Lucky Orange, Mouseflow, or Clarity installed. So I'm trying to think. I don't. It's rare that we have to actually introduce someone to something for the CRO specific stuff.
True. It sounds like the list you've mentioned, I've also heard from a couple other people in similar roles. So nice to see that there's, I guess, some consistent players in the space.
Yeah, and that we've got a big we've got a Notion list full of apps and things that we'll recommend to people. So if someone does want to change their review provider, we've got a preferred partner for that. If they want different bundling apps or whatever they want, we've got something in the list to help people out with that.
Nice. Maybe I'll just have a couple more questions to wrap up this episode.
Yeah.
So one question I'm asking all my guests, what do you think most businesses get wrong when it comes to their customer journey?
So I think I did a post. It was my post this morning on LinkedIn about it. Most
Perfect.
focus way too much on acquisition. I think it's something like for every $100 spent on acquisition, about 5 is spent on retention and 4 on conversion. Right, so loads of people are trying to drive traffic to their websites, but no one is putting effort into keeping them there. Converting them and keeping them there. So, I know on the retention side, email is getting bigger and bigger, and a lot more people are doing a lot more with it. Still not enough. But I think conversion really misses out. And I think there's maybe some misconceptions around what CRO really is and who it's for. I saw, didn't exactly get into an argument on LinkedIn, but exchanged a few comments with someone who said CRO is only for brands doing 10 million or more a year, which is just rubbish. You can be pre-launch and you can do CRO, because part of CRO is speaking to customers, getting understanding what they want, getting that feedback, and using that to create better copy, and all that stuff. If you're below 5 or 6 million a year, you might not be able to do too much A/B testing, but there's still plenty of opportunity to optimize the business, and a lot of what CRO does is it feeds into marketing channels as well. Because CRO itself is not a marketing channel. It's a separate kind of. I always describe it as a growth discipline for the business, right? An A/B test is a way of proving a hypothesis or disproving it, and then that feedback should be applied to the rest of the business. So if we run a test on social proof and we find that by using videos instead of images, we can improve conversion rate by X amount, we should be passing that information to the paid media team, email team, potentially other teams as well, saying this creative works really well at converting people. Maybe you guys should consider this as well. Like, what can you learn from this? So I think the people who say we're not big enough as CRO, or brands underneath a certain amount shouldn't be doing it. just don't really understand what it's about. And just, I guess, on top of that, conversation that's popped up a few times is you don't need a full-time CRO person. So obviously, if you're doing a lot of testing, you do either need a team in-house or you need an agency. But for a lot of brands, you don't need a full-time CRO person. You just need someone who is full-time CRO.
Okay.
Right? So a lot of brands will say, "Oh, our digital manager handles CRO," or something like that, and really they've got no idea what they're doing. They've got no CRO experience. They end up looking for some apps and things. So giving a full-time person the added responsibility of CRO isn't really going to get you anywhere. You're better off getting a part-time dedicated CRO person who can just come in and do what they do really well. Right? It's the reason brands hire paid advertising freelancers or agencies, PPC freelancers agencies, people to do email, all these separate things, because they realize that it's far more efficient and effective to get an expert in. And it's the same with CRO. And yet so few brands do.
I think that's a really good point. And as you mentioned, like the learnings from the CRO expert, whether it's external person who helps or someone internally, like as you suggested, part-time, can be applied across so many different disciplines within an organization. So if you're kind of like pigeonholing it to one person, tiny bit of their time, you might miss on that kind of ability to weave these learnings throughout the company as efficiently or effectively.
Well, we all know that person's likely to have a target on it as well.
Yeah,
And
true.
once targets come into it, anything that they don't see as contributing to their target, they don't do. Right? Because I know
True.
I've done it. When I've been in-house and overloaded, I don't bother communicating with other teams so much, because I'm like, why am I wasting my time putting a report together for the other teams when I need
Yeah,
to be focusing on my results?
true.
And it means you don't iterate on it. You end up with people who they'll run an A/B test, it doesn't work, they just ditch it and move on to the next idea. But there's no iterations, no learning. There should always be a reason why you've run an A/B test, and so regardless of whether it's a success or not, you should be saying, well, why did this happen, and what do we do next? And
Indeed.
someone who's got an hour a week of their
Yeah.
time available for CRO is just not going to do it, especially if they don't really know CRO.
It's a good one. Well, I have to finish this off a question from another guest for you, actually. So another guest of ours wanted to know, we've already touched on this a bit in our podcast today, but how can you research your customer in order to make the best landing page ever?
So yeah, I think it comes down to the customer research stuff we were talking about before. Run some surveys, speak to some customers, find out what they really care about, but then also tailor the landing pages to your ads as well. So a lot of products will have multiple selling points that they can really focus on. I worked with an ergonomic pillow brand a couple of years ago, and part of it was neck pain. The big problem they were targeting was neck pain, but we realized we could target ads specifically at elderly people with neck pain, or sports people with neck pain, or probably desk workers with neck pain. Right, so you're still talking about neck pain, but you're making it super relevant to each audience individually. So that's just like another simple way is when someone clicks on an advert, just making sure that the content they see is the same or at least very similar to the advert that they actually click through on.
True, because you might
And
click on something and be like, oh, I thought this was for me, a soccer player who has neck pain, and now I don't see this at all on the site.
well, if you see a really old person
Yeah.
looking really comfortable on it, you might be like, well, I'm not 70 years old, so
Yeah.
maybe that's
I don't
not
want
for
to
me.
buy this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that's really important. And then I'd say keep testing. You're never going to have a perfect landing page. It doesn't exist. There's always going to be ways to improve it, ways to optimize it. It's always going to be changing anyway. Ad creative's might get fatigued, so you might have to change things up on that side anyway. Changes to the landing pages. Just even like changes in tastes, seasonality. There's so much that impacts it. So I wouldn't worry too much about creating the perfect landing page. Just make sure you're dealing with usability, right? Is the landing page easy to scroll, and is there a clear next step? Anxiety. Does it answer some initial questions about this product and concerns? Is there social proof? And then motivation, like what is this product going to do for me? Do I actually want to spend time reading more details about this?
Exactly. Well, Will, maybe now we can return the favor. Do you have a question that you'd like our next guest to answer?
Yes. So one question I always ask on my podcast is, if you could sit down with one person in the e-commerce marketing space, who would it be?
I like that. That's a good one. Well, I'll be sure to let you know what our next guest says on that.
Yeah.
Will, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show today. Maybe you can remind our audience one last time where they can find you or your resources if they're curious in learning more.
So either connect with me on LinkedIn. So it's just
Mhm.
Will Laurenson. I've got a blue background on my profile picture with a hand pointing at my name.
Mhm.
Or customerswhoclick.com. There's loads of information about our methodology, what we do, case studies, all that sort of stuff.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Will. So great to have you. And tune in next time for another episode of Click to Buy.